From MTN News, this is Montana This Morning.
For a while, you could hear the sounds of megaphones as law enforcement tried to make contact with the man inside of this Comfort Inn. We'll give you the latest update coming up.
And they are among the smallest minority group in America, yet recently they faced thousands of hate crimes. Find out how some are using educational tools in an effort to stop the hate. Well, good morning and happy Wednesday, Southwest Montana. It is now 6:30. Chet Lehman, Matt Elwell with you here. That's really reflective from what you're telling us the day is going to be like. Kind of partly to mostly cloudy skies.
Not necessarily warm, but not cold.
Not like we've had.
No, right. We are setting the stage for snow a little later this week. Of course, you'll want to tune in. We'll go out to the weather patio and talk about weather that's going on out there. Yesterday, the rabbits were running around all over the place.
Like crazy. They were, yes.
20s this morning. It is a little chilly. I don't think you're going to need the heavy coat, but a nice heavier jacket might be in order for the morning, especially when you factor in a little wind. You look at our futurecast, not much going for the day today. Partly cloudy skies, as Chet was mentioning, for the afternoon. Daytime highs not quite too average, but we're seeing the temperatures just consistently hitting the 40s and 50s here over the next few days. But again, snow is in the forecast. We'll talk about the timing of that coming up in just a few minutes.
All right, thank you, Matt. Just ahead of 6:31 now, tense afternoon on Bozeman's north side. Multiple law enforcement agencies responding to a standoff that led to an hours-long road closure of a busy highway here in Montana, or in Bozeman. TN's Jane McDonald has a
It started with a phone call. A man in his 30s called the Bozeman Police Department, and now the police department, sheriff's department, as well as SWAT and more are here waiting.
He clearly was in some distress. He became a little more volatile as he talked to them, and eventually we became concerned enough that we began to treat it just at a higher level.
Evacuating the Comfort Inn, closing down roads, waiting.
We have some indications that there was talk of possible weapons, but we don't know that for sure.
The man inside was alone. The team took precautions, communicating from the incident van to those in front of the hotel and those inside of it.
These are incidents that we are trained for. You know, we are there to keep people safe and also people who might just be experiencing crisis, that we can help them out.
Throughout the evening, you heard a megaphone, officers trying to communicate with the man inside. And Deputy Chief Knight told us that the man was from the Gallatin Valley area and that they had reached out to the man's family.
We have specially trained negotiators that talk to people and talk to folks who might be in crisis to see if we can talk them out of crisis and get them in a stable situation and get them into the right place.
At around 8:40, the Bozeman Police Department posted that the incident has been resolved with one person in custody. In Bozeman, Jane McDonald, MTN News.
Again, as Jane just mentioned, that situation resolved peacefully last night. We will update this story online and on air coming up tonight at 5:30. Well, with all the ways inflation impacting our lives and wallets, we're looking at what you can be doing right now to protect your money. Vanessa Mishanya has some tips from economists.
Because of inflation, buying anything right now kind of feels like walking into a casino, sitting down at a slot machine, and just watching your money disappear. And while shopping strategy may not necessarily hit you a jackpot, I did speak with an economist who said it can save you a significant amount of money.
Just spend your money faster. The stuff that you need to buy it immediately.
That was Scott Chu. He's a macroeconomist and professor at West Virginia University. Now, spending your money quickly may sound like the exact opposite thing you want to be doing right now, but inflation is at a 40-year high. And he tells me that prices are rising so quickly that, say, waiting until the end of the month to do your shopping will definitely end up costing you more.
You also have to be careful because you don't want to overspend and get to the end of the month and then have to put things on credit cards. But at least you can save 1 month of inflation by buying stuff sooner.
And that new large appliance like a dishwasher or a fridge that you were planning on putting off?
If inflation stays high, maybe that thing I was going to buy a year or two from now, I ought to think about finding a way to buy it now.
Something else Shu told me to consider is buying in bulk. Sure, buying the one roll of toilet paper is much cheaper than buying the pack of 20, but each roll in that 20 pack is much cheaper than that one. So it's going to last you a long time and save you a lot of money in the long run.
Find some ways to buy larger amounts so that my per unit cost over a longer period of time is going down. That also helps offset some of this inflation.
Times are so out of whack right now that used car values are increasing. The price of an average used car at the end of last year was $28,000. That's up 28% from 2020 and up 42% from 2019. And Shu says that it could be a good idea for some of us to sell our cars right now.
It's kind of like sell high and buy low. Shifting from a used car, a good used car that's really desirable and could get you a good return that you'll probably never see again, and leverage that into purchasing a newer car is a nice budgeting play.
Just a few things to think about so the next time you spend some money doesn't quite feel so much like a losing bet. I'm Vanessa Mashani reporting.
All right, thank you very much. 6:35 now. What inspires you to make a change? We all have motivators for the stands we take in our lives. In this morning's To America's report, Matt Pearl takes a look at how education advocacy groups and legislators are teaming up to use classrooms as the first line of defense against hate.
We see movements at their apex. We rarely see them when they're a crayon in the hand of a cautious child.
I was one of the only brown kids in my school. And when I would draw pictures of myself, I would draw myself with a peach crayon because I didn't want to emphasize my difference from other children.
Decades later, Connie Alangovan saw those same peach-colored portraits at her children's school. They inspired her to type an email and start a movement.
I wrote to the people in the Central New Jersey Asian American Reading Group that I was in on getting API curriculum in the New Jersey public schools. And 5 people responded, and that's how we started.
The rise in anti-Asian hate crimes in the last 2 years has been widely reported. Nearly 11,000 incidents have been reported to the advocacy group Stop AAPI Hate. We hear far less about what's being done to stop it. Ilangovan sent her email in March 2021. The same month where a gunman in Atlanta walked into 3 Asian American spas and killed 8 people.
Asian Americans are treated like perpetual foreigners, and actually we've helped build this country.
What happened next is its own education on how change gets made. Ilangovan and her reading group wrote an open letter for AAPI studies in New Jersey public schools. They produced versions in multiple languages. In 2 months, they garnered 1,500 signatures.
Fewer than 2% of teachers are Asian American.
Ying Lu translated it to Chinese.
It's not surprising you don't see them show up in the public space. They're very much siloed, but on WeChat, I see many activities.
By year's end, a community stereotyped for not speaking out was holding rallies and testifying at the State House. Students at high schools recorded their thoughts.
In 2016, a young 6th grade student in New Jersey said she wanted to end her life after her own classmate refused to acknowledge her as deserving of equal treatment. And that girl is me.
People were telling us that it wasn't going to pass this year. They said, you're going to have to wait a while, but that's good you got started. But we were very insistent that it needed to pass now because our kids were suffering now.
This January, New Jersey became the second state after Illinois to sign into law a K-12 requirement for AAPI curriculum.
They're only kids once, and we want them to feel safe. We want them to feel they belong.
Oh, that's nice.
We see the apex. We often don't see what comes next. Many who push for this curriculum fear it won't be enforced. They envision a long, drawn-out effort to ensure it is. But they also envision other states taking notice. Already, advocates in New Jersey have heard from those in Ohio and Florida, Pennsylvania and Georgia, and a handful of others. Seeds have been planted, as they once were in a cautious child holding a peach-colored crayon.
This is us creating our belonging in this country. We were motivated for our kids, and we weren't going to stop.
In Princeton, New Jersey, I'm Matt Pearl.